Hi, everyone. I'm Shelley Lyle.
And I'm Brian Avery.
And welcome to Voices from the Field, a podcast brought to you by the Department of Sport Management at the University of Florida. This podcast was created to share the career journeys of sport industry professionals. Our hope is that you learn the ins and outs of different sport industry professions. We're excited to be with all of you this week and with our special guest, Kristi Dosh. Kristi is currently the founder and publicist for Guide My Brand and a writer, reporter, and public speaker for SportsBusiness Enterprises.
So Kristi received her bachelor's in politics from Oglethorpe University and her law degree from the University of Florida. Go Gators. Kristi worked as a legal secretary for White & Johnson LLP and an associate for Nelson Mullins before transitioning into sports business reporting. Her work in sports business reporting includes Forbes, Comcast, Sports Southeast, and ESPN. Kristi has also been an adjunct professor at UNF, a radio host for 1010 XL, and a director of sports marketing for Reputation League. She published a book called Saturday Millionaires, How Winning Football Builds Winning Colleges, and has been a contributing writer for Fast Company and Entrepreneur Media. She is currently the founder and publicist for Guide My Brand, a writer, reporter, and public speaker for SportsBusiness Enterprises. Welcome, Kristi. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're excited. As I was doing some of your bio, I was like, so many things I didn't even know. Like, I know we've talked and your background and what you're doing now, but it's been really cool to hear your journey. So I'd love for you to share with our students a little bit about your career journey and kind of how you went from wanting to be in politics and then the law, and then now you're in reporting. So yeah, share with us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I always tell students, whatever you think you want to do right now, don't put on blinders to other opportunities that might be available, because I had wanted to be an attorney my entire life and knew I wanted to go into corporate law. Somewhere along the way, I decided it would be really cool if I could combine my love of sports with going to law school and being a lawyer. I wanted to be the first female general manager in Major League Baseball. And I used to joke, like, there still isn't one, so I could still do it, but now there is one. So I will not ever be the first female general manager in Major League Baseball. Instead, I ended up with this career path I didn't even know existed. I didn't know a sports business reporter was a thing until I was well out of law school and practicing in corporate law. But I was always a prolific writer, and I had blogged all through law school, first about my law school experience, and then that morphed into writing about legal and business issues in sports. And I continued that into my practice because I was lucky or unlucky, depending on how you look at it, that my practice area tanked quickly after I was hired. I did commercial mortgage-backed securities in 2007, and only a few months into working at my firm, commercial mortgage-backed securities work was sort of the reason the downturn began, and much of our work went away seemingly overnight. And we still had to be in our office every day, but there wasn't a lot of work to do. And so I was blogging just because I love to write. And over the course of a couple of years, it's obviously a more complicated story than this, but over a couple of years of writing about the business of sports, and in particular, the business of college sports, I ended up attracting the attention of first Forbes, who invited me to come be a contributor, and then Comcast Sports Southeast, where I went to do TV. That was all stuff I did while practicing law full time. And then when I left law was when ESPN offered me a full-time position as their sports business reporter back in 2011. So that was 10 years ago, and I have never gone back to practicing law. I have been a sports business reporter ever since. But when I was in college, one, I wasn't even thinking about journalism, but two, I had no idea there was such a thing as a sports business reporter. So, I always tell students, keep your eyes and your ears open. You just never know what's out there that you haven't even learned about yet.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's cool just to see your unique path, for sure. And so what are some of your daily duties and role in your role currently, and some of the activities maybe our students wouldn't know about, or you wouldn't think they would know about?
Yeah, so I split my time between writing for Forbes and sometimes a few other publications. I've written for SportsBusiness Journal and Golf Digest and Fox Sports, and so I occasionally freelance for other outlets. But I've been a contributor for Forbes for 11 years, minus the 2 years that I was at ESPN from 2011 to 2013. And then I sort of balance that with also writing and managing my own site, Business of College Sports. And that was a site that I started back when I was an attorney. So So I've had that site for over 10 years. It eventually got me my book deal for the book that you mentioned, Saturday Millionaires. Much of that content came from the blogging I was doing at Forbes and on my own site. And I have maintained the site over all these years, sometimes more than others. So when I was at ESPN, I didn't. And there have been times in my career I've been busy with other things, and that has been the thing that has gone by the wayside. But I have been really focused on it again for the last couple of years. And I think what people probably don't know is that you don't just get to write, as much as that's my favorite part. You really have to do a lot of work around building and growing the site. You have to know SEO. You have to be very strategic about what you're posting. You have to be strategic about what the headline is and what the subheadlines are. And I'm always doing SEO research on other sites and borrowing ideas. And then I've taught myself WordPress over the last 11 years. And now I can build a whole site from scratch. And so there's a lot of back end work that goes into having your own site. But I've had offers to purchase my site and have had opportunities to do all sorts of things with the book deal and other things. So I enjoy all the different aspects of it, not just the writing.
So, Kristi, if you're looking back on your career at this point and put yourself in a college student's shoes, what is one thing you wish you had known that kind of could have propelled your career, made it a little easier, if you will, that you could share?
Okay, a couple of things. One, I wish I had known I was going to go this route and I could have majored in journalism or communications or something more applicable. Getting a bachelor's in politics has done me very little good in life. But back then, if you wanted to go to law school, you really got pushed by advisors to be a political science, or at my school, we called it politics major. And so I just went with the flow and did that, not because I was particularly interested in it. So I wish I had had perhaps a different major if I could go back. But the other piece of advice that I think people can maybe take away is I was really limited when I was looking for internships. I was from Atlanta. I knew that I one day wanted to come back to working in Atlanta. And so when I would apply for sports internships when I was in college, I only applied for internships in Atlanta. And I really limited myself, and I ended up never doing a sports internship during college. I did change my tactic a little bit in law school, and I did do a sports internship in law school, but I wish I had been a little more open to being and living somewhere else while I was in college.
Now I can respect that. We're trying to explain to a lot of our students that you can't stay in Florida. You need to move on because there's so many opportunities, domestic and internationally. So I think they're starting to get the message. So it's good. No, I appreciate you sharing that.
And what are some of the best resources that have helped you along the way in your career path?
Yeah, that I would say has varied at times, but I think that the most impactful thing for me has actually been social media. I was talking to a class yesterday and I kept telling them that Twitter changed my life, and that if I ever wrote a memoir, the subtitle of the memoir would have to be something about how Twitter changed my life. And I joke about it, but it's true. I met my agent who eventually got me the ESPN gig on Twitter. I just saw that he started following me on Twitter, and I ended up emailing him, and we had a great conversation. And 6 months later, he had gotten me the full-time job at ESPN. I actually met my husband sort of on Twitter. I was listening to him. He was in sports talk radio, and I tweeted about something they were talking about on the air, and that started a conversation between us, and we went out for drinks, and we have been together for 11 years now. And that all kind of started from a tweet, but also a lot of the other people who've helped me in my career. I connected really early on with Tim Brando on Twitter, and he was the first radio host to have me on a national radio program, and he gave me a recurring bi-weekly segment that I did for about a year before I got that ESPN position. I ended up with some TV gigs, and a lot of radio and TV interviews over the years have come from meeting people on Twitter and having these conversations. Either they saw the content that I was sharing and writing on Twitter and reached out to me, or I've reached out to them. I'm not joking when I say Twitter has been really integral in being able to meet and talk to people who maybe otherwise wouldn't answer the phone for you or wouldn't respond to an email, or your email would end up in spam. Like, Twitter's actually been an amazing way to connect with people. And a lot of those people I have since met in real life, and they have become mentors and friends. So Twitter should give me some sort of sponsorship or something. I don't know.
I'm thinking that. I'm like, I've never been able to master Twitter, unfortunately. So I'm struggling. I might have to follow and see what you've been up to as a faculty member here. So as you've been throughout your career, have you seen the sport industry grow and change? And what do you think is on the horizon for students, that are interested in obviously we teach them to observe for trends potentially that they could follow. So any thought in that regard?
Yeah, a few different things. So I definitely think over the course of all the things that I've covered that tech and gambling are the two things that have changed the most in terms of with tech, all of the different things that teams and leagues have implemented. I was just watching the other day where the Panthers had an AI panther that was jumping around the stadium.
I didn't see that.
It was so cool. I thought that was the coolest thing. So you've definitely seen tech come a long way, and teams and leagues integrating that more with their work, not just for marketing, but for fan experience and a number of other things. And I think that's not going to change. I mean, tech is going to continue to be this evolving space. And if you're someone who really understands that space, then I think you're going to have a leg up. Quite frankly, I am not one of those people. I can just see it and appreciate it, or read the stories and appreciate it. That's never been like a big part of what I've written about, because a lot of it, quite frankly, is over my head. But also we've seen, with gambling and betting, I never imagined we would be where we are now, with so many states having passed laws to allow legal sports betting in their states, and to see how integrated it's become with team sponsorships. I even just saw one of the first college sponsorships the other day. So that's definitely an area that, again, I don't really report on, but I have always watched, and it's definitely, I see a lot of writer positions open specifically to cover that. And I think I couldn't even apply for one of those because I don't understand it well enough, but there's so much opportunity for people who do find that interesting and do understand it. So I think those are two kind of topics that are trending. And then I would say from a professional standpoint, thinking about how I can put myself in the best position for future jobs, I think the ability to create content is becoming really important no matter what job you're in. It used to be like if you weren't someone in marketing, or, as that evolved, social media marketing, you didn't necessarily need to know how to blog or shoot a video or edit video or do a podcast. You didn't have to be a content creator. But I think more and more those content creation skills are being utilized across almost every department in college and pro sports. So if you're somebody who can master even just one of those and really know how to do it, I think you're going to give yourself a leg up.
That's great. Yeah, I was telling students too, as we talk in their career coaching sessions, like what are the program software people are using, especially like in creation. I think like in marketing, it used to be like now you're marketing and graphics, and how that actually is to your advantage to know those systems when you apply to jobs, because there's expectation almost, like at least you have minimal knowledge and ability in that area.
Yeah, I just told a journalism class yesterday, learn WordPress, because when I was at ESPN, they were on WordPress. Forbes was on WordPress until about a year and a half ago. All of my blogs have been on WordPress. I mean, major media networks, if they don't use WordPress anymore, they've created their own custom CMS, and it still mostly looks like WordPress. And it's one of those skills that I think has helped me so much that I sort of accidentally learned. But if you're in school now and you're thinking about how you can give yourself that edge, if you're someone who's interested in sort of the writing and the content creation side in terms of on the website side, I think WordPress is a super important thing to learn.
Awesome. And then what are important things students should consider when pursuing careers in sport law or sports reporting?
It's interesting because I know we all had a conversation at dinner last night that I think is worth repeating for students about some of the sort of mistakes that I've seen people make as they're applying for jobs in sports, no matter what that job is. And my husband was in sports radio his whole career, and he was jumping in at dinner last night and saying the same thing. Trying to convince someone that you are the biggest fan of the team is not a good strategy for getting the job. You need to really figure out what will you enjoy doing day in and day out. And a good example for me was that I did finally get that sports internship in law school at the WTA tour. And I was so excited to finally have a sports internship. Well, hate is a strong word, but I ended up not enjoying my time there, and did not want to do that full time, because the job ended up being primarily about intellectual property and about sending cease and desist letters to websites and blogs and media outlets that were misusing the logos and other intellectual property of the WTA tour. It was so boring. It was not at all what I thought being a lawyer at the WTA was going to look like. I thought we were going to be negotiating television contracts and dealing with agents. And, I had a very different perception of what it would be than what it actually was. So I think you have to figure out what is that thing you're going to enjoy sitting at a desk or it's not always sitting at a desk. I mean, maybe you are more out and about, but what is that thing you're going to enjoy doing every day? Because you're not going to get paid to be a fan. And so you need to figure out what are those tasks and those things that you enjoy doing that you bring to the organization, and don't spend your valuable interview time trying to convince them that you've been a fan since birth and that's what makes you the perfect candidate, because it doesn't.
Yeah, it's funny. A previous guest, Brandon Curran, gave us a statistic during a podcast where 70% of the United States are fans. So you better cut through that noise.
Agreed.
So beyond that, Kristi, where can our students connect with you in some capacity, kind of carry on this conversation if they were so inclined?
Yeah, so you can always find my work on businessofcollegesports.com, and there's a contact form there, but my email is just kristi@kristidosh.com. And then I spend a lot of time on Twitter, which you probably are not surprised to learn now. So you can definitely hit me up in the DMs there. I am SportsBizMiss, MISS.
Okay. No, that's excellent. I appreciate you being so available for them. I'm sure you're going to get bombarded with a few emails.
I'm happy to chat with people.
Good. No, I love that. So beyond the fun we're having here in this conversation, we like to go a little step further. And we have this rapid fire Q&A that we do that's chock full of lighthearted questions just to kind of get So Shelley, I give you the floor at this point.
Sure. So, just 1 minute. I'm going to put it on the timer on my phone, and I just have rapid questions I'll throw out there, whatever comes to mind. You want to pass, you can pass. Totally fine. We'll just see how many you get through in a minute. So Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. When you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Lawyer.
Favorite sport to play?
Oh, softball.
What's the worst haircut you've ever had?
Oh, bangs. Never gonna
Name 2 daily habits.
Oh gosh, writing. I can hardly go a day without writing, and walking the dog.
Favorite zoo animal?
A lemur. I love lemurs.
Okay. First job?
I answered phones in an insurance office.
Mountains or beaches?
Oh, I live at the beach, so I tend to say mountains because I want a vacation in the mountains, but I equally love both.
Okay. LinkedIn or Twitter?
Twitter.
Favorite type of food?
Oh, it's a toss-up between Mexican and pizza. I refuse to choose.
Favorite holiday?
Christmas. I was born 5 days before Christmas, so I'm a big Christmas person.
Awesome. And last question, what phone app do you waste the most time on?
Twitter.
Awesome.
I do agree. I think Twitter owes you something at this point.
Yeah. I mean, if there's ever like a trivia question about my life, people should just like say Twitter as the default answer.
Right. Well, that's great. So, Kristi, it's been a real pleasure having you on Voices from the Field today. We thank you for joining us and sharing your professional endeavors with our students, the faculty, and our alumni. I know that the University of Florida and the Department of Sport Management really appreciate your time and value your thoughts. So with that said, please follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at UFSPM. We are your hosts, Brian Avery.
And Shelley Lyle.
And
go
Gators.
Gators.
There you go.
Yeah.
There we go. Perfect.